Greetings everybody, this is a quick overview of the OpenRepeater 2.0.0 software release. Just wanted to go through the user interface and discuss some of the options that are currently available in this release and just give you a quick overview on how to use those. So we'll go ahead and log in. For the UI, the default username is admin and the default password is OpenRepeater, all lowercase. So when you first log in, this is what it's going to look like after you run the wizard. So this is a default configuration. This is the dashboard. You can get a little bit of information about the system right here, such as the current system date and time, which you would currently need to set in via SSH, but that's usually once you set the time zone. I'm on Eastern Standard Time here. It will pull that down from the internet. You can see the CPU load, CPU temperature, uptime. You have the options to restart and shut down the actual Raspberry Pi from within the UI. So if you're accessing it remotely, it makes it a little easier. But if you are accessing it remotely, just make sure you only shut down if you intend to shut down, because once you shut down, it's going to be a little hard to get it back up unless you have other means to do so. And then you can also stop the SVX link core and it will show you the status, and then restart it as well. See memory usage over here, and then your disk space usage over here. If you have a larger capacity drive and this is showing up way smaller than what it should be, you should go ahead and expand your file system, which we have some tutorials on the website on the knowledge base on how to do that. Next tab over here is the general settings. And this is where your call sign would be, which you've already entered in the wizard. The amount of time that you want to wait to drop the carrier after the receive transmission's been dropped. I'm going to go ahead and lower this to 2, just as an example. And then you'll notice when you change a setting, most of the settings in the UI are AJAX based. So as soon as you exit the field, it will save the settings into the database. However, that's not applied to the controller just yet. It's not in the live setting. This is where this will pop up and it says rebuild and restart repeater. So once you're done making changes, you can continue making changes until you have everything set the way you want. And then when you're done, you want to rebuild and restart the controller. It will give you a little message explaining what it's going to do. And then you can click restart. And we'll just take it a second. And then it will be live on the air for the interface that you're using. Another feature worth noting is the DTMF, remote disable. That's off by default, but you can enable that. And you can enter a PIN code here and save that into the database. So that will be the PIN code you'd enter via DTMF. And what that will do is the receiver will still be active, but if you have somebody that's misusing the repeater, you can go ahead and transmit the DTMF tone on the receive side and disable the transmitter so they can't continue abusing the repeater on the output side. And you'll notice that it has information about remote DTMF disable commands. That's actually just going to jump you over to the DTMF reference page, which we'll get to here in a minute, and that will give you the actual codes that you need to enter to disable the repeater based on your PIN code. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the rebuild and restart alone, and we'll come back to that. So identification, you have 2 identification options. You have the short identification and the long identifications. These are in minutes. By default, it's going to start with Morse identification for your short identification. And at 10 minutes, which is pretty much where you need to be in the US, it might vary for other jurisdictions around the globe. And then long ID settings, that's by default set to every hour. You could set it to longer if you want to. So let's go back to short ID settings. So we can set this to basic voice, and what that's going to do is that's going to announce the call sign in phonetics. And you also have the option, if you want to append Morse identification after that. Then down to long identification settings. Let's go ahead, and you have pretty much the same settings as you do in short, but there's a couple slight differences, like announce current time, and that's available on the basic voice identification, and then custom identification. This allows it to play custom WAV files, which you can also do on the short identification as well. So you have some sample clips in here that are recorded. If you want to preview them, you can click the play button.
Welcome to the sample OpenRepeater. This repeater is located somewhere that
And obviously these are just
This is a sample repeater.
Sample files that you're probably going to want to delete and replace with your own files. And you can easily delete that over here. You can rename the clip. And you can also select a clip. So you can see this one doesn't have any buttons. And it's green, which means it's currently selected. You have an upload button right here. You'd attach your MP3 or WAV file. And then click upload, which I'm going to cancel out of here. And then once you upload it, it will appear, it will process the clip in the background, change it to the appropriate format that it needs to be able to play over the air through the SVX link core. And then it will show up in this list right here, and then you can select it from the list. And then you have the option to, again, announce time, and then append Morse identification to the end. So this would be a good spot if you wanted to say, have some announcements, like example for a net or a club meeting. You could record a longer identification that plays every couple hours maybe, or once an hour, depending on your preferences. And you would upload that here and have that play, and then you can append time, announcement, and Morse identification to the end. Or if you want to announce more specific stuff about your repeater, such as PL tones and stuff like that, that's also a good use for the custom identifications. And then down at the bottom for your identifications, this is the global settings for your Morse identifications. So when you're appending Morse ID or just using Morse ID only, these are the settings that will apply to that. So by default, it's going to have your call sign followed by a /R. But I mean, you can do just your call sign depending on what's appropriate for your application. And you can also preview what the Morse identification's going to sound like. It uses a simple JavaScript to do that client side. But right now it's at 25 words per minute, 60 hertz. If you preview that, that's what it's going to sound like. If you want to speed it up or slow it down, you can do that. And say we want a little higher pitch. Let's go 1000 hertz. Do that as well. Or obviously go faster. And that's pretty much your options for your identification. So let's hop over to the courtesy tones. By default, it's just going to be a simple beep when you initially set it up, but you can also do custom tones. And once you do that, you can preview the library of custom tones. This will show you the one that's currently selected. And just like the identifications, you can upload a new tone. So if there's something in the library that doesn't appeal to you and you find a sound that you like and you want to upload it, you can do that as well. So you can, again, preview the tones. And there's also a couple pages here of tones that you can go through. So let's say water drop is the tone I want to use. I'll hit select. You see it turns green and the buttons go away. If you just go back to the top of the page, you can see that water drop is the custom courtesy tone that is selected. And that's pretty much it for courtesy tones. Now for modules, on 2.0.0, we currently have 4 modules available. Help and Parrot and Echolink are core SVX links modules. Then Remote Relay is a custom module for OpenRepeater that was built that has its own UI. But this allows you to control relays via DTMF. And in default state, when you first load it, all the modules are going to be deactivated. So we can activate them simply by clicking on activate, and you'll see it's active now, and it will let you know that it's been activated. And if this wasn't already there, it would pop up when you make changes. And it will give you a brief description over here of what that does. So I'm going to go ahead and enable help. Parrot module allows you to play back everything that is received, so you enable that, and you can do. It's a good way to check your receive audio into the repeater. It will play it back to you, and you can hear how you're getting into the repeater. Echo link, that allows you to activate an echo link node on the repeater, and you can see this one's a little bit different than the other modules, as it has a settings page as well. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And this is where you'd enter all your settings for your echo link. Your echo link call sign with the -R or the -L, depending on your setup. This is how long the module is active without use until it shuts off. Your echo link password, location. There's also some options down here for proxy settings if that applies to you. And you can just click on modules to get back to all the modules. And then remote relay. If we activate that, go to settings, that's going to have some options in here. Again, module timeout. There's a momentary delay in milliseconds. If you just want to trigger the relay on and off real quick. Access temps allowed. And then you can also set whether or not you want all the relays to turn off when the module is deactivated. So when you exit the module, it will turn all the relays to the off position. And then you can enter up to 8 relays. By default, it will do 4. And this is the corresponding GPIO pin number associated with that relay. So you can use this with hardware that's built with relays on board, like the SVX Link card from Juan F8 ASB, or you can use it with those relay boards you can get from eBay or Amazon, as long as you wire them in correctly and can trigger them with the GPIO pins natively. And then you also have the option here, active high, active low, so that depends on the way you're triggering the relays. And that's usually, most of those boards are triggering the relays through an optocoupler. And then you just submit when your changes are done, which I'm just going to leave that be, and we'll hop back over here to the modules. So again, we have 4 modules. Now we'll be adding some more modules in the future and building out the module framework. Interface page. This allows you to set up your interface between your radios and the OpenRepeater controller, the Raspberry Pi. So you have 2 things that you need to worry about when you're connecting or interfacing the Pi to your radios. You have the audio in and out channels, and you also have the GPIO pins that will be triggering the push to talk on the radio and also the COS line. So you can see I have 2 ports currently set up. Port 1, port 2. The green is the receive section. The red is the transmit section, and you have some additional settings over here. So this is the GPIO pin that the COS line is on. This is the audio input, so it's the right channel of the FE Pi chip on the ICS controllers board that I'm using. And then this is the push to talk GPIO pin that it uses. This particular board has a GPIO expander on it. That's why the GPIO number is so high. This is not a native Pi GPIO pin. And then the output is the right output audio channel on that audio codec chip. So I mean, it'd be pretty similar if you're using your own homebrew hardware and USB sound as well. So this is the advanced settings for that port. The RX mode is COS. You can do Vox as well. Don't recommend it, but if you're experimenting, it's available. And then for your COS line, you have the choice of whether that's active low or active high. And then for your TX pin as well, you can set that active low or active high. The other port's pretty much the same. And then when you make changes to this section, you will need to click Update Ports. Otherwise, it will not get saved. And then you have the option down here to load board presets. So there's a couple supported boards. So I'm currently using the Pi Repeater 2X version 3.1 Plus. So you can select a board and you can load a preset. And it'll give you some information here. And once you load the preset, what that will do is it's going to pull from a database of settings for that board that it knows. And it's going to populate all your pins, your GPIO pins for both in and out. This board supports 2 ports, so it's going to load both ports in. It's going to load the appropriate audio channels for those ports, and it's also going to fill in the advanced settings for those ports as far as active high, active low, and then the RX control mode. And then if for some reason you're only going to use one of the ports on the board, you can easily just go ahead and remove the port and then just click Update Ports. And now we're down to just the port 1. And then you can rebuild and restart the repeater. And those changes should take effect. If you hop over here to the dashboard, you can see that SVX link is active. Now you go to the repeater log. You can see some information here. So you can see it's using one logic right now and it's successfully loaded. When we were messing around with it before, something broke, so it didn't load previously, but now it is loaded. And then the last page is your DTMF reference. So it'll give you the codes you press to activate stuff. So if you're using remote DTMF disable, that's on the it was on the general settings page right here. Then this is the code that you have entered, and then it'll be +0 to disable the transmitter and +1 to re-enable the transmitter. So once you disable the transmitter, the receiver is still going to be listening, so you can still type in codes. So you can disable it that way, and then another way to disable the repeater is going to the dashboard. If you have it connected via the internet and you can get to it over, say, a VPN or something like that, or a remote desktop, then you can also just stop the SVX link core here and it will become deactivated. So that's 2 ways you can disable the repeater. Then help, you press £0 to get to the help module, and it's going to give you an overview of the modules that are enabled. So this list is populated with what I have enabled, and this is the same for Parrot. You press £1 to start Parrot, then you just transmit, and then it will play back your audio to you. And then to get out of Parrot, you just close the module, which is a standard way of closing the module, which is pound to exit that module. Echolink, you have a number of commands available. Pound again to first disconnect from any connected station that you're on, and then pound again to exit the module. Or if you're connected, you could just hit pound, and that should disconnect you from the station and terminate the Echolink module. Now the Echolink module is always running, so if somebody connects to your node when you have the Echolink module enabled, then they can get into your repeater and it will just automatically enable the module. Remote relay, you have a number of options. There's other videos and stuff on how to use this, but you'd enter £9 to get into the remote relay module. If you have a code enabled, it will prompt you to enter that first, and then once you're in, you can, for example, if you wanted to turn relay 1 on, you type in £11 and relay 1 would come on, £10, relay off, and then £2, and that would just do a momentary. Then you also have some other options down, same with the other relays that you have enabled. But down here you have some other options as well, so you could do all relays on, all relays off, all relays momentary, and there's also a test procedure where it will cycle through the relays, and then pound to disable. Go ahead and rebuild, restart to get rid of that message. Then the last thing under this menu is if you wish to change your password from the default OpenRepeater, which is advisable. Once you get things set up, you can enter a new password here and confirm the password and click change password, and then your password for the UI would be changed. The root password for the Raspberry Pi, you're going to want to change that in the shell, and there should be some help to do that on the knowledge base on OpenRepeater.com. Thanks, guys.